Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. River Community High School Board meeting of October 20th, 2016. Stand as they pledge allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Gauss. Mr. Parrish.
Here.
Mr. Henning. Mr. Madrell.
Here.
Mr. Haas.
Here.
Mr. Wilkerson. Mrs. Towers. Here. Mr. Cromper.
Here. Do you have any agenda changes?
No.
We all had time to read the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions? Oh, excuse me, public comment first. Anybody have any public comments?
Mr. President, I have a comment or two here. Good evening, my name is Bill Wilson. I would respectfully ask the board to consider the following corrections to the minutes dated September 27th, 2016. Page 1, second paragraph, lines 3 and 4 should reflect 4 members present, not 5. Page 2, last paragraph, 4th line should read FY08 to FY17, not FY18 to FY17. Page 2, last paragraph, additional line, should reflect that Bill Wilson asked how much the cumulative property taxes were increased during the same time period discussed. As a note, the answer to my question is actually $4,993,639, not $500,000 as noted in the budget hearing packet. And in closing, I would like to ask that the Board of Education send a note or a card to the Waterloo School District and Board of Education expressing our school's sympathy with regards to the tragic death of one of their students. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? We'll move forward. Okay, the consent agenda. We all had time to look at it. You have any questions? I need a motion to approve.
So.
Motion made by Mr. Parrish, second by Mr. Madrell. You roll call that. You roll call that, starting with Mr. Parrish.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the minutes of September 27, 2016 special board meeting. Unit 06. Committee reports.
None.
Student member, none. Principal report.
Okay, I had a couple of things. Okay, faculty introductions tonight. We've got Mrs. Karen Miller, and she's in our science department, and Mr. Mark Miller, and he's in our math department here tonight. So thanks for coming. Okay, academic stuff. The biology 2 classes took a field trip to Missouri Botanical Gardens. Mr. Farner escorted them. Model UN students have completed their resolutions. They're prepared to present at the fall conference next month, which will be at McHenry. The social studies students have been learning about the election process. They've definitely had a lot to look at. They've been processing and looking at the election coverage, analyzing presidential debates in class. The first quarter ended last Friday, October the 14th. There's a change, parent-teacher conference schedules. Something went out in Teacheries, it's been in the paper, there's an all-call, but conferences are actually going to be next Monday from 4 to 7 and next Wednesday from 4 to 7 p.m. We're going to alternate with the grade school. Clubs and activities, got a lot going on too. The marching band and color guard competed at McKendree and Collinsville this month. At McKendree, the band earned second place honors, and the color guard were awarded best color guard at the competition in their group. At Collinsville, the band and color guard took third place. That was definitely a more challenging competition because they grouped the classes differently, and our band was in with some larger bands, so they did a nice job. The math team is off to a great start, led by Mr. Miller back there. Alex Borowski took first place honors out of 24 students at the SWIC math competition, and he's done this for the second time in a row. Cole Casting placed second, Ben Nahas placed third, Brett Harris placed fourth, Alex Higgy placed sixth, and then Alex Borowski, Victoria Walden, Cole Casting, and Nick Borgia placed first in the team competition at SWIC. So sounds like you pretty much owned that one. That was good. Sad and Save Red Ribbon Week is this week, and that's planned by the Sad and Save students and sponsors, Mrs. Courtney Travis and Miss Tina Haight. So Monday was Don't Let Drugs Ruin Your Dreams. The kids were wearing PJs and slippers to school. We also had the Do the Right Thing kickoff. So they're using a positive phrase this year called Do the Right Thing because it's the right thing to do. We've been promoting it with the students, and Save and Sad bought the students and faculty and members of the board and teachers these bracelets that they've been wearing to try to, to focus on good decision making. Tuesday, they had Ready to be Drug Free. Everybody was wearing red. They had a guest speaker named Tim Collins, and he came in and presented to all 4 of the classes. It was called To Be Honest. Wednesday was Sock It to Drugs, so they all wore crazy socks. Today was Team Up Against Drugs, so they wore their favorite jersey for Jersey Thursday. And tomorrow will be Drug Free in the Berg, so it's blue and white, free Berg attire tomorrow. Sad and Save has also been creating Google Docs about various positive choices, anti-drug use, anti-bullying themes that they have been distributing electronically to the student body each day of this week. Community service stuff, the National Honor Society, led again by Mr. Miller, volunteered at the Fall Festival at St. John's at Smithton. Boys basketball, led by Mr. Matt Lauer, and boys football, led by Mr. Ronnie Stewart, picked up trash and emptied trash cans following the chili cook-off on October 8th. The art club, led by Mrs. Stewart, worked at Broadingham's Pumpkin Fest. They painted faces for the kids there. And then FCCLA has been really, really busy. That's the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. And they've been volunteering at the Ronald McDonald House, serving chili to the homeless, and less fortunate, the Belleville Christian Center for their 30th anniversary. The FCCLA this year has had about 100 members volunteering from the student body for different events. They're putting in 10 to 20 hours per week, and they're doing all kinds of really great things in our community and other communities. Students in the news, senior Hannah Boss earned a game ball recognition for her volleyball play by the Belleville News Democrat. Senior Brett Harris was recommended and selected for National Youth Leadership Forum in Medicine. Sophomore Adam Haas completed the marquee. If you haven't seen it, it's all lit up tonight. Looks great. And a landscaping project in the front of the school for his Eagle Scout. And Drew Wilkerson couldn't be here tonight. He's prepping for 4 tests tomorrow. He was not here Monday and Tuesday because he had been selected to participate in this National Council on Youth Leadership at WashU. So he was there leading students, going through these different service-oriented sessions. Was actually working with a former Freeburg student, Jeff Cronenberg, who graduated years ago, who was in the program. And then they had a leadership banquet that night, so he's playing a little bit catch up tonight on all his college tests tomorrow. And then this is really cool too. Senior Maddie McDuffie, she's selling holiday gift bags, and she's selling them for $12 each, but then she's asking for people to donate the bags back. She's filling them with candy, and then she's going to be delivering them to children in the hospital who can't leave for trick-or-treating and other holiday events. So she's doing that all on her own, and just a really great heart. So a lot of good stuff from our kids. Faculty has been going through some professional development. We had a half day October 6th. Dr. Kelly Stewart from McKendree University came in and did a free presentation for us on the book The Energy Bus by John Gordon. It was awesome. It was great. It's all about bringing positivity to your school, to your life, to your job, to your work, and it was a lot of just really great points of thinking about the great things that you have and working to bring everybody together to make the best atmosphere possible. They also had the St. Clair County Institute on Friday, so they did a session on FCHS finance. They also did some sessions on Google Classroom, Teacheries. They did Breakout EDU, which is using problem-based learning games to create interest in a subject or a lesson. So the students solve puzzles or use clues to open boxes, and then inside the boxes are things that relate to the lesson, whether it's a book or whether it's a science experiment. So pretty exciting stuff. Mrs. Harris brought that to us. Also, they did creating self-grading assessments with and without using Flubaroo. It's kind of a funny word, but pretty much what that means, it's a Google program that helps teachers quickly grade and analyze online assessments and assignments. That way they can email the scores, kids can get the scores back right away and get some feedback just instantaneously. So that's something that I've been working on. We also had a law refresher on school supervision, confidentiality, and student rights, and that was presented by our school lawyer, Mary Rhodes, who came in and did that for our staff. So it's been a busy month. Fall sports are wrapping up. We got football going to Salem tomorrow night. Volleyball has a senior night tonight, which is why you couldn't find anywhere to park. And they'll open up with Waterloo on Tuesday for regionals at Columbia. Soccer closed out regional play on Saturday. They lost, but it was from what I understand, a really awesome and fantastic game against Chabot. They had lost, I think, 9-0 earlier in the season, and then they lost 2-1 in the regional, but they said our kids just played phenomenal. Golf wrapped up too in their regional play, and cheerleading's finishing up, and then I think I'm missing cross country is dominated the conference. I think our boys went 1 through 7, is that correct? Yeah. And then they are going to be heading to the regional, which is actually at Smithton this Saturday, and then working on their postseason. So that's what we got.
What time does that start?
10
o'clock.
10 and 11.
Thanks.
Okay, superintendent's report.
Okay, first thing I want to mention is the Freeburg Foundation is going to have their first ever 5K turkey trot on Saturday, November 19th. And they're going to run kind of basically right around town. They're going to start and finish at the athletic field. And I know Mr. Madrell is on the foundation. If anybody's interested, he can probably give you more information or take your check if you'd like to give it.
Particularly, we'll take checks. Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome. Last week, I attended the Southwestern Illinois Association of School Administrators Breakfast. At the breakfast, we had 3 state legislatures, Senator Lichtenfeld, Representatives Hoffman, and Davidsmeyer, and walked out of there fairly depressed because the state of Illinois is not in great shape, and I did not get a lot of confidence from those 3 guys speaking that we're going to go in a positive direction anytime soon. A couple things that are kind of hanging over the entire state. They're talking about a statewide tax cap. It was talked about last year. That's been brought up again. The pension reform, where they would shift the cost of pensions from the state to the district. And we're looking at an absolutely huge amount that would come to Freeburg, and it would probably end up being around $1 million additional per year that it would cost us for the pension. There also are 2 different committees at the state that are looking at new school funding models. The committee that's being pushed by the governor is supposed to have a report sometime in either February or March, early spring. And the word that we're getting is that they're hoping that it's going to help schools downstate. They're trying to do what they call an evidence-based funding model. And so we'll see how that goes, but it's a state, so I don't feel real confident in believing anything until I see it, so we'll see how that works out. Included in the packet was the preview of the III conference that Mr. Gauk and I are attending. I put it in there so that if any board member sees anything that maybe they're interested in, if we're not sure during a specific session if we want to go to one thing or another, maybe they can help sway us. But it should be, again, another good convention. And then lastly, Coach Lahr put on a surplus athletic uniform. I don't have the total. I think we were well over $3,000 that he made. He has several buckets or containers of uniforms left, and I think he's going to try to put another one on before Christmas. But it was pretty popular, especially for alumni who want to come back and get their uniform number. That's all I have for my report.
Thank you. Up to old business.
I just put the sidewalk project on here. I had spoken with a board member, and I just wanted to kind of let the other board members know that my plan is to look at this project again. This is the concrete project in front of the shops. The information we'd had previously is that it's probably going to be over the $25,000 threshold, so we'll have to go through a bid process. So my thought is that we get back to that in the spring after the weather turns bad and then turns well. There was a meeting last night at Smithton. The Smithton board, from its community review group that they had, we're looking at reorganization. And so 3 of us, Mr. Madrell, Mr. Haas, and myself, went to that meeting. There were representatives from all the other boards as well. And I have it on here in case either one of the board members want to talk a little bit. I did include a memo to you in your little folder. So if you want to take that out and kind of look at it while the other 2 guys are giving us any kind of update or impressions that they had about that meeting last night.
Go ahead, Mr. Joe.
Basically, this is the second one of these meetings that I've attended about, I want to say around 10 years ago. Sheila Simon went around the state and held forums. And there were probably around 7 or 8 District 77, 70 administrators and faculty that went down to Johnny Logan. And there were probably about 40 representatives, mostly from southern schools, high schools, community colleges, boards of education. And at that time, there was just, I don't know, 1 person spoke for it and 30 spoke against it, okay? Coming forward to today. Last night, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Osborne from Eastern Illinois University, who works with the state in terms of organizing school districts that are interested in talking about this. And without going into like a lot of detail, there's a very structured process that needs to occur, and a lot of fact checking, a lot of getting people on board, a lot of processing. He said that overall, to facilitate one of these things is about 4 or 5, maybe 6 months. And it was just an informational meeting about here's all the steps that you need to take. And without going into those in great detail, there's probably something like this available online, or we've got copies of some of the material that we picked up, and Greg has kind of outlined most of this in this memo for your information. But good discussion, good presentation by this gentleman. Basically, no decisions are made, but the Smithton Grade School, Freeburg Grade School, St. Labore, and Freeburg High School were represented. I don't think anybody else was represented.
That's it. That's all.
Pardon?
That's all.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Anyway, about an hour and a half meeting. Roughly did this.
Yeah, I would agree. The only things that I'll add onto Mr. Madrell's comments were it is a compressed time schedule. This being mid-October, and the requirements for such a feasibility study have to be completed by 30 June. And so typically, as he mentioned, it takes 4 or 5, even upwards of 6 months. And part of the deal is that normally it's the school board that petitions the state. It goes through the regional office of education and then gets approved up at the state level to have a feasibility study. There is another method in which 50 members of the community in the school district can petition, or 10% of your voters if you happen to be from a small a small, but normally it's a school board. Such studies from time to time receive grant money. Right now, the state of Illinois has grant money available to assist. Typically, these can run anywhere from $5,000 to $11,000. I believe the grant money available from the state is about $8,000. A school can participate or not participate, and also a school can, in the feasibility study, and also participate or not participate in the consolidation. So none of our feeder schools would necessarily have to change if it would eventually come out as a consolidated school district. But the meeting last night, the feasibility study itself, its sole purpose is to decide whether or not a consolidated school district would be one, better for the students, two, maybe more efficient from a tax burden for the community. They look at everything. They look at 10 different areas, from curriculum all the way down to what happens. Some of the other takeaways that I had, in our particular case, there'd be no change of mascots. He mentioned that as a sticking point on a lot of, you get two high schools, for instance, that want to go together, which mascot are you going to take? That was his exact, and we don't have that, that condition. The other thing that he mentioned was that if a school district has a large amount of debt, it does not leave that existing school district's area. Those residents still are responsible for any debt that a school district brings into. But that is not the case if there's a legal judgment or something pending that comes out of a lawsuit or something. Once a consolidated school district would come together, that would be spread out amongst the new school district, and that might be applicable. That was one of the distractors. My takeaway on the session last night and moving forward was that we're on a compressed timeline. It's only informational, and we can't make an informed decision without the information in front of us. And so I would suggest, I don't know if something, you have this listed as an old business, but I don't know if it can be an action item or not, if it's listed where it is on the agenda. In other words, if a motion can be made or not.
You can have a motion.
Okay, well then, I would suggest that the money is available. We can only decide on our participation in a feasibility study. Our cost would be approximately, at most, if we paid for everything, that wouldn't be by a grant, it would be $4,000. The other schools that choose to participate, and there's 3 others, could share the cost, the remaining $4,000. That our cost might be $1,000, would be the minimum, $4,000 would be the max. To participate, hire an expert, and once and for all answer the question that a lot of our community members have on, is there or isn't there benefits to it? But even last night, ultimately, it comes down to what's best for the kids. So I would like to make a motion that we allow Mr. Fraking, in communication with Dr. Holmes, to represent us if it would come about that they want to move forward with applying or petitioning for a school consolidation study, feasibility study. And that would, my recommendation would be that, 1, that we participate if they do have one, 2, that we allow Mr. Fraken to make that call or make the arrangements, that we don't have to get back together for another meeting just just to cross a T or dot an I.
I had a little bit different take on that. I know that Smithton Grade School called the meeting, and they had, I think, a board member or two that were interested in that. What I don't know, Dennis, is where is our grade school at, where St. Laboria is at, and where this board is at, as far as, charging ahead with that. I was thinking more along the lines of the superintendents getting together. I mean, I don't know, does this thing have legs? I don't know that it has legs other than this meeting. And if it does, then to follow through with something like that. And that doesn't mean it can't happen. I don't know that it needs to happen, like right away. Like we, as a board, haven't talked about this yet, to my knowledge.
Well, this is the time and place. I mean, we can't meet another time in the location unless we waste another month and wait till the November to decide. We can't. It's not a closed session topic that I would think. So if we're open for discussion now, if people, my only motivation was that if the other schools decide that they want to move forward, that we authorize Mr. Fragan to announce our participation in such a study if they want to move forward. And we don't have to take it on our own. We could, but I was trying to prevent having to wait for the November meeting in order to make a decision for participation in the study. This, again, it's only informational.
Well, I've got 2 pages of notes that are pretty comprehensive to share with the group. I don't know if Mr. Vollmer would like to make his audit report.
Greg's got something to say about this.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted a couple things. So that they call it reorganization. There's 2 kind of avenues that would probably work in our situation. One, it would be a consolidation where all the grade school districts would come with the high school, and it would be a unit district. There's also a situation where they can have a thing called a partial elementary unit formation, and that's where, let's say, one of the grade school districts would not want to come in, and I won't pick a name because someone will get out there and say that I don't think they should come in. So let's say grade school A doesn't want to come in, then the other grade schools in the high school can form a unit district, but that other district would still be served by the high school but would not be part of the district. So those were the 2 scenarios that I kind of took as a possibility for us. Once the petition is formed, this is after the study, but once the petition is formed, there's what they call a committee of 10, and the committee of 10 is put together with board members, community members, people associated with the school, whether it be administrators or employees. And that group of 10 go through and make some very important decisions about curriculum buildings. They do talk about the mascot, so more than likely, you're not going to have 4 mascots, you're going to pick one. So that would be an issue. And the guy mentioned, and this is something that's kind of joked about, that the hardest animal to kill is the school mascot. So that is one of the things that have kind of shot down a lot of these things, is because people hold on to those kind of things. But that committee of 10 also talks about tax rates. If, like Mr. Haas said, if there's any debt that a district brings in, that district and their residents, their taxpayers, are still required to pay that through their taxes. There is some incentive from the state. The incentives are not what they used to be, but there are some incentives. Financially, the biggest issue is probably the difference between the salary schedules from the different districts. And I know in our case in particular, the high school's salary schedule is quite a bit higher than the other districts. I don't know a number, but that's going to be fairly substantial, and that's something that they would look at in the study. And once the study is finished, what they do is they make a recommendation. It's not a binding order from this person that does, it's just a recommendation. And it could be that they don't recommend consolidation, and it could be that they do recommend the consolidation. Once the recommendation is in, then the districts have to decide. They have to hold public meetings. There's a lot of involvement with the public. They have to go to the regional office. The regional office is the one that kind of coordinates a lot of this, and then it has to go to the state to get approval. Then it has to come back for past referendums in each of the districts. And if it doesn't pass in each of the districts, then the whole thing is shot down. So to kind of go what Mr. Haas was talking about, so the study would start sometime in early spring and have to be finished by July, I'm sorry, by, well, 1st July, June 30th. The thought is to try to get the grant, that we would be pushing it to try to apply for the grant and get the grant for this year. I have no idea what the other districts' thoughts are. My thought is that we go back and the superintendents talk with their boards and say, you know, I think our feeling is that we may, some feelings may not be, and then I think, you know, this might be something that we look at the feasibility study, and I honestly would be in favor of the study, but not till next year. And then we can kind of put this to bed completely, whether it is a good idea and everybody moves towards it, or it's not a good idea for this particular community. I'm concerned we would be rushing it if we would try to apply for the grant money. And financially, I would not be in favor of us spending the money ourselves to try to do the study ourselves. I guess there's always the risk that the grant money won't be there next year. But if we know that all the districts are in favor, then we could probably budget for splitting the cost of a feasibility study. If there's not a grant, we could do that for next year. But I think there's a lot to go into it, and I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen before there's movement, in my opinion. Official movement by a board.
I'd have to agree with Greg.
The only comments that I made, my comment about the mascot was the fact that we do not have two high schools, for instance, in the same community, a larger community being merged together, that they have to pick one mascot. Every school, Smithton, has their own mascot and would be allowed to keep their mascots. They're not going to become the mini midgets and the mini midgets too. They're going to remain the Braves or the Hornets or whatever they are, and we would remain the midgets. The argument against pushing forward with this, or at least the authorization, if the other schools would decide to go through with it, would be that the grant money just became available, and it became available for this year's use. The studies typically start in January, and January is 2 months away, so certainly finding a qualified individual to do the feasibility study, there's plenty of time for that. My motion that's on the table is only that we authorize Mr. Braken to talk with Dr. Holmes and know our position as either, yes, we would like to participate in a feasibility study if they decide to do one, or not, and not have to wait another month to meet after maybe one of the feeder schools contact Mr. Fraking and said, well, we're considering on participating, will you participate? I'm looking to authorize him to answer that question when he's asked. He doesn't have to spearhead the movement, but at least tell them yes or no if asked.
Well, Dennis, if you, I think we all feel that you want to push forward with this. Do you want to put this into a motion?
Well, I have a motion on the table.
Okay,
It
well,
hasn't received a second.
Well,
but-
we need a second. We're going to move on. Anyone make a second?
Very well.
Let's proceed on. We'll have to let this rest, and we'll let Mr. Fraking work on it and proceed forward, or bring more information to the table.
Okay.
the last item that I have is the 1% sales tax is not going to be on the November ballot. And so the push is from the county schools to have this put on the April ballot. And so in order for that to happen, they need a certain percentage of the schools to pass a resolution. And so I'm asking that the district pass a resolution saying that we would like to have this resolution put on the April ballot.
Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Do we have a motion out there?
I move that we put, make a motion
1%
to
sales
put it on
tax
the April ballot.
April ballot. Motion made by Dennis. Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Second by Mr. McGraw. Okay, let's roll call that. Will you start, Mr. McGraw?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion passes. You don't want the resolution? Wonderful. Okay, number 11, new business.
I met with Mike Heap, our transportation director, this week, and sat down and talked about our vehicles that we have. He has identified 2 vehicles that are in need of replacement. In your packet, I put together a little bit of a memo on the 2 vehicles. We have a small bus, bus 42. It's about 14 or close to 15 years old. It's got 106,000 miles on it. It's a 21-passenger bus. More importantly, it has a wheelchair lift. So it's our only small bus with the wheelchair lift. It is used mainly for our life skills and transition to transport those students back and forth to school and throughout the day. It's had quite a few repairs. He feels like it is in need of replacing. A new bus would be probably close to $90,000. Mr. Heap has worked with other districts, and they've have purchased used buses that are a couple years old. They're in very good shape, have lots of life left in them, and can usually pick those up from somewhere between $50,000 or $60,000. The other vehicle is Van 4. It is a small Astro van. It's got about 167,000 miles on it. It's much smaller than the bigger vans that we use. It is very much needed replacement. I know I drove the golf team a couple times and the big door slid open as I was driving, so that made for an exciting ride. That's been fixed, by the way. But what he would look at is probably replace it with a similar 8-passenger van to what we have now. That is used for different activities, both during the day and after school. He's thinking that a van is probably going to be somewhere in the range of about between $30,000 and $40,000. We do have a line item for vehicles in the budget for $120,000. These would easily come under that. All I'm asking for is that the board approve me to go and come up with bids. Or I'm sorry, come up with specifications. So, once specifications are put in front of you, you have the choice then to move forward. But this way we can kind of put specifications together and come up with a lot better idea of what we're looking at.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Towers, second by Mr. Parrish. All in favor? Aye. Proceed forward.
Okay, the last, Mr. Ballmer of Moore, Renner, and Simonin PC is here to talk about our fiscal year 16 audit. This is annual business, and so he is going to grace us with his presentation, and he told me 45, 50 minutes would be about all he's going to have. And you have a copy of the budget in that binder.
Good evening. Where we usually start with the district and in our report is with your financial profile. That's usually one of the most important areas that all districts are concerned with. This year, the district had a little bit of an issue. as we've been having more expenditures over the past couple of years than using our funds, we have slid down into a score of a 2.30, which puts you on the financial watch list. The warning starts at the low end of the warning is at 2.62. So you guys went from a review last year, which was a 3.1 score, down to a 2.3 score. The watch range is from 1 to 2.61. So you're at the upper end of that. Part of what transpired, as I said, days of cash was one of the big items that moved from 119 days to 61 days. And the expenditures to revenues also dropped. What does it mean to be on the watch list? With the watch list, same as if you would have gone into the financial warning, the state will monitor the district. They'll look at your records, look at what is presented, what we send them in the state report. They offer technical assistance, such as financial projections, cash flow analysis, budgeting, personnel inventories, and enrollment projections, which is things that you're doing anyway. One of the items they will also do is review what's submitted, review the documentation if they ask you for anything, to determine if you fit into Article 1A8 of the school code. 1A8. If you would fit into that category, which you're more likely than not going to, because that's for districts that really are having serious issues. They've had to do teachers' orders or tax anticipation warrants. They've had 2 consecutive years of the ed fund, the O&M fund, transportation, and working cash exceeding fund balance. So basically, if you started the year with a negative fund balance and you went more negative for 2 years in a row with those 4 funds, then they would be much more concerned about the district and probably be in to look a lot quicker than what they will probably be doing here. Or those districts don't work with the state. They don't provide them any information. Fail to be able to pay payroll or pay their debt service. Those would be the only reasons that they would really come in under School Code 1A8. This being the first year being on the watch list, I took a look at sort of St. Clair County to kind of give you guys an idea of what's going on around you. There's 27 other districts in St. Clair County. In 2015, there were 3 other districts on the watch list. In 2014, there were 4 other districts. Statewide, how do we trend on that? If we go back to 2004, there were 152 districts out of 887 that were on the watch list. From 2004 to 2012, it got down to 17. From that year going forward, it's been building up again. And if you look at how states funded the districts, what they've done, when they've changed the foundation levels, when they've worked with the numbers as to how much money, how many grants, anything like that, you can probably follow that trend of the number of districts that are going on the watch list. For last year, there were 32 districts out of 857 that were on the watch list. That does not include the ones that have been taken over. In the past, for years and years, there were usually about 2 districts in the state, 3, Cairo, Illinois, East St. Louis, and Chicago district that were under a financial authority. Now there's about 7 that are under financial authority, where the state actually put somebody in charge of the finances for the district. So what does that mean for the district? That means we need to really be careful going forward, watch how we're spending money, do everything we can to get back into a positive cycle. One of the causes of some of the negative this year is the way that the real estate taxes were sent out from the county. In previous years, we've been getting several distributions of real estate taxes prior to June 30. So that figures into the bottom line. That cash is usually held over from one year to the next because it's actually for the next year. So when we look at the 2015 year, we got $654,000 of revenue for the 2016 year. In 2016, we got $93,000 for the 2017 year. So when you take into consideration that you didn't receive $560,000 and we're just barely on into the watch list category, we might have been hanging on in the financial warning area and not have hit the watch list with that additional revenues. But we can't say for sure that that would have been the only factor that kept us out, because there were changes in the other 4 factors that are contributing to the score. When we look at what's happened, if we look at the educational fund, which is the main culprit in most instances, we received $4.2 million in revenue this year versus $4.3 last year versus $4.6 the year before. So there's a downward trend of revenue that's coming in each year to the district. Now, as I said, there were real estate taxes that are part of that between this current fiscal year and last fiscal year, but the 561 isn't all part of the ed fund. That's spread out between all of the funds. If we look at expenditures, we had 5.1 this year, 5.5 last year, and 5.3 the year before. So we did have a spike in the previous fiscal year, which we did bring down in the current fiscal year, so that is a good trend. How does this affect you overall? Your ADA this year went up considerably, and with the reduction of expenditures, we were able to drop the operating expense per pupil to $11,354 from $12,023. The per capita tuition cost went down to $10,767 from $11,500 the year before. So those numbers are trending well. In looking back, those are lower than numbers we had in I didn't have something to look at before 2013, but the 2 costs we have this year are less than what was in 2013. As Mr. Ferking alluded to, one of the issues going forward for all districts is what's going to happen with the state pensions. This year, the on-behalf contribution that the state would have made for the district was $1.2 million. TRS has 2 levels in TRS, Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1, anybody employed before a certain date belongs to that. Everybody employed after that is a Tier 2. The Tier 2 employees, you guys actually pay more every year into that tier per employee than is needed for the cost to cover what their retirement's going to be. The reason the state did that is they use that subsidy to help pay for future benefits that are going forward for all your retirees, current pensions being paid out. Last year, that was enough actuarially to cover what was going forward. This year, based on the studies, it's not enough now to cover going forward for those groups. So what that ends up doing is it hurts the fund when it looks at how much it needs to get in each year to fund it. They have to lower the rate of return because they don't have enough money coming in to fund out everything they're doing. So how does that affect the district's numbers? We look at your proportionate share of the $60-some billion that the state owes to TRS. In the current, we're always a year behind. They don't have the current numbers until the following year. So this is basically for fiscal year 15 and 14. The district's share is $642,000 for 15, $746 for 14. So it actually improved. You have less proportionate based on what your contributions were and how the formula was figured. But now's the number that we don't know what the state's going to do with. And that's the state's proportionate share of the district's cost. For year 15, that's $23 million. For year 14, it was $20 million. So the lack of that subsidy is affecting the state's proportionate share because they have the lion's share of what goes into, or supposed to be going into TRS. So when you are planning to go forward, as alluded to, if you have to fund those and come up with an extra $24 million going forward with the proportionate share each year, is that $1 million? Is it $1.5 million? Is it $2 million? We don't know. And that's the big wild card right now. Will they pass something before the election? Will they wait till right after the election? Lame duck sessions? We don't know what they're doing with that. And then the downside is if they put the property tax cap on, right now, pensions, you're allowed to tax based on your need. If they would cap all of those and not allow the pensions to be taxed, or you to acquire real estate tax to fund that pension, then we have to figure out how the districts are going to pay for that. It's not only your problem, it's all the districts in the state that are facing this issue. IMRF, on the other hand, when you look at a system that's been well-run, well-managed, they get contributions from the members, they get contributions from the district. Your share there was $343,000 for year 15, $200,000 for year 14. And that's funded over a decreasing annual year. Right now it's on year 28. So basically over a 28-year period, you're gonna have to fund that. So that's not much additional cost to the district every year. We don't know for sure where that's gonna head. We do know that right now, with the direction your educational fund is in, that we do need to try to make as many adjustments as we can there. We know the majority of the costs in the ed fund relate to salaries and benefits. That is about 84% of the expenditures out of the ed fund. So with the other 15 to 16%, we've got to try to cut some costs and look into ways to manage the large burden that we have in the first category. Outside of that, the other funds were operating fairly well. The expenditures that came out were based on what you had planned to expend, be it fire prevention and safety or transportation. So outside of that, the district was running pretty well during the year, and it's just a matter of trying to improve our score so we're not staying on the watch list. Any questions? I'd like to thank Mr. Farking and his staff for their assistance while we're out here performing our work and all the help they give us.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Anybody have any extra questions for Mr. Franking or Mr. Palmer? We need a motion to accept the annual budget, FY 2016. Motion by Mr. Parrish, second by Mrs. Towers. Roll call that. Mr. Dennis.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Any board correspondence?
No.
Agenda items? Need to go into closed session?
Yes.
Or
It's for litigation and employee benefits and what correct.
Mr. Reed? Sure. The appointment of employee compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony or complaint lodged against the employee against the legal counsel of the district to determine if is validity. 5 ILCS 120/2C1. This for closed session. Really? Litigation, this is litigation when the action against affected party on behalf of a particular district has been filed and is pending before the court or administrative tribunal, or when the district finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case, based on a finding, shall be recorded or entered into closed session minutes. That's all we need? Okay. I got a motion to go into closed session.
Somebody.
We roll call that. Starting with Kim. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Now in closed session.